Welcome back to the Colors Are a Crutch podcast. My name is Max Sternberg, also known as Wounded Satellite. I'm joined, per usual, by my incredible Italian-loving co-host, Max P., the Florian Man. We're joined by a special guest, the Weatherlight Captain himself, the man to fuck me up and give me my only Swiss round loss at the Boyle, the King of Sisse, Malcolm Beckford. How you doing today, man?
Oh, it's good to be here. I am excited for the upcoming events in the next couple of weeks, and I'm glad to be here to talk about them.
Yeah, very
and
nice.
Some of the past events over the past couple of weeks, actually.
Yeah, we're going to have fun time tonight. I'm glad you're joining us. This is going to be a good podcast for you to be on.
We're talking about morality.
Yeah, we're going to take a step away from our usual, like, super positive, happy, like, here's our tournament results, here's how things went. And we're going to take a deep dive into the seedy, toxic underbelly of CEDH.
Who am I going to have to make walk the plank this week? Like...
Oh, it's gonna. This is gonna be a bunch.
I think a lot of people have walked the plank this week, and they are both participants in the tournaments and the tournament organizers themselves. It has been a rough couple of weeks all around.
You know what's hilarious is when we knew Malcolm was going to be on, and we were talking about doing, morality and ethics in CEDH. Max and I were like, should we? Is it going to be a problem? It's going to be a week after all the drama happened. Like, is that still going to be fresh in people's minds? And then we forgot that there's another CEDH tournament the next weekend. So there'll be plenty of fresh things to talk about every single week.
There's new bullshit every week now. It's so bad.
It's a new story every week. It's something always a little bit different, but always a little more of the same.
Yeah.
There's a lot of overlap. We keep having the same, same thing happening over and over again, expecting the same result. Maybe we're all just insane, but
yeah. So here's what we're going to go through. We got a lot to go through. And I'll probably miss some right now, and we'll end up wandering our way to it as we talk. But we're going to talk about lying in CEDH. We're going to talk about lying because there was some lying in Chaos 11. We're going to talk about cheating because there's cheating in every webcam event, but most recently there was a Tivit player who cheated in Treasure Series 11. We had stalling issue. We had a well-known player who we all love who stalled in a game and got DQ'd. We got our own actions that have happened, like we've got unsportsmanlike conduct that have happened before. We can briefly mention that. We don't need to go into it again too much, but we've all had our issues. I had a judge called on me in Punt City too that I can talk about. We've all had moments, right? Put it that way. So we're gonna talk about all that, and then at the very end we'll go through a meta breakdown of Mythic. A couple of housekeeping items we got to cover, right? So first of all, we are sponsored by Top Deck. They are the ones who bring all these tournaments, make all this stuff happen. We love them. Number two, we still have pre-orders open for the Colors Are a Crutch Playmat. That's not going to last forever, so please get your order in, get your playmat. Number three, like and subscribe to the video. And lastly, Max, you do coaching or something? I think Malcolm, you do coaching too. Why don't you both talk about coaching? Malcolm, since you're the guest, why don't you go first?
I actually just started doing coaching for mostly Sisse. Gonna branch out a little bit afterwards, but I'm gonna start mostly coaching people on how to play Sisse a little better, get more information out there about playing Sisse a little better and more morally in our meta than some people tend to play. So hopefully we can get that going, and anybody who's interested can find me on Discord at Vice Versa.
And just to be clear, Vice Versa is spelled VEISSVERSA because no one would just guess
Never.
that.
I hope that Max will do me a huge favor and put either my Discord name or the Sisse Discord in the links below. Hopefully.
It's actually on screen right now.
Both
right now.
Yeah, they're on screen and they will be in the description below at this exact time. Don't have to worry about that at all. And then I also offer CEDH coaching. My name is Max Sternberg, also known as Wounded Satellite. If you're interested in coaching from someone who is at least top 16 or top 4 to won an event on now 5 different decks, 5 different tournaments in a row, all 100 people plus, I think, or at least one. This one was 85. Feel free to hit me up. You can find me on Discord as Wounded Satellite or on Twitter as Wounded Satellite.
Only 85, huh? Okay.
Only 85 for Blue Farm. I mean, I needed, I really needed a, easy mode for Blue Farm.
Oh yeah. I actually did get to play Blue Farm for the first time, seriously, in a small event the Sunday after my win. Jorman loaned me his copy of the deck, and I got to play it for 5 or 6 rounds, which is really fun. I actually had the exact same record in the exact same order as I'd had the previous day, somehow.
On Sisay. So going from Sisay to Blue Farm made absolutely no difference.
Basically, win, loss, draw, win, finals.
Almost like the deck is good.
So, I mean, the reason I ended up playing Blue Farm, we'll start there. I didn't know what to play. And so the night before the tournament, at like 11 p.m., I was like, should I just blind send Blue Farm? And I looked, and I was only missing 2 cards. I didn't have a Scrubland and a Tundra, and I was like, I have proxies for those. Like, that's fine. And I just decided to like throw together Waffle's list a little before midnight. And then I woke up after 3 hours of sleep, and my round 1 game was my first ever game on Blue Farm. And what I quickly discovered is that you could huff glue and do whippets, and you could easily top 16 on this deck. I've discovered a card that I am now a fan of. I think it's a little underplayed in the format. I think more people need to try it out. It's a little sketch. It's just like a 2/2 for 2. But this Grand Abolisher card, really good. It's really powerful. Turns out you just like land him, and then you can kind of do whatever the fuck you want. It's like pretty easy. It's pretty funny. One game, I literally played Grand Abolisher just to make a guy crack his Ranger Captain. Worked. And then couldn't have a win if he didn't do that. But just like did it, and then it got back to my turn, and I was like, oh well, I can win now. Sweet.
Yeah, I just drew 3 cards, and no one can do anything, and I can do whatever I want. And
yeah, but it costs white double pip. That's a lot, dude.
That's so hard.
Yeah, that was my concern. I know it's a little bit of a fringe card, but it's kind of like bad Cutzel, where you just can't draw cards with it, but it still does the silence thing.
Like,
so.
do you need? Is there like anything else it does? Does it also make you a sandwich?
Is it evasive?
Does it
fly?
But
is it flying?
Nope.
Not flying?
Nope. Does nothing. Does nothing. It's also a human, so you can't get it with Evasion by Courier. Kind of sucks.
So Max, I have a question then. So if I play a Grand Abolisher and I promise to not win the game, can you interact with me then?
What do you mean?
Huh. Interesting.
Huh.
It's almost like you can't enforce promises that your opponents make to you when you play EDH.
The quick summary on my Blue Farm games was round 1 I got absolutely schlunked on by Naestrom. Round 1 I got absolutely dunked on by Naestrom. He went turn 1 Fish Post Mana, turn 2 Smothering Tithe, destroyed us. Round 2 and 3 both kind of went the same way. I was in 4th seat for both of them, just like landed a Grand Abolisher after getting out a card advantage engine and like did the Blue Farm thing, whatever. And then my top 16 game was the most scuff game I've ever played, and we will get into it and all the issues with it very shortly.
Yeah. So going back to Grand Abolisher. So most people at this point who listen to this podcast probably know, at least to some extent, what happened, because the thing went completely viral all over Twitter. I'm sorry, X, all over X, where we had 60 card players commenting. CDH was like the clown car of Magic the Gathering for a good 3 or 4 days. Here's what happened. In the top 16 game of Chaos Treasure Series 11, one of the players was in a commanding lead and was looking dangerous. So you run into the situation where the table starts to try to work together to try to stop that one player. And another player who was on Blue Farm offered to help, offered to try to figure out ways to stop the player, and promised the table that they weren't going to win. Swore up and down they weren't gonna win. They said like 4 or 5 times throughout the game. Plenty of video out there if you really want to go track it down. Cast a Dockside. Convince the players not to correct treasures, because don't worry, I'm not going to win. Cast a Grand Abolisher. Don't worry, I'm not going to win. And then proceeded to win the game. And afterwards, swore up and down, guys, listen, I didn't see the line. I didn't know that I was going to get there. I was totally surprised by it. And one of the other players at the table took to Twitter and posted the video and said, this seems like lying to me. What do you guys think? So I'll put Malcolm on the spot first. What are your thoughts? When did you see it, and what did you think at first?
Okay, so I saw it as it was happening, ironically. I was in my hotel room watching the stream when this occurred, actually. So that was kind of a funny moment. It was after my first tournament of that weekend, and I had just won, and me and Jorman were sitting in the hotel room, and we were watching the stream when this happened. And our immediate reaction was, why did you believe this player? If you had interaction that could do something, why would you let the Abolisher resolve at all? And if you couldn't counter the Abolisher, why would you go and complain after the fact that someone else played the game and you had nothing to do? That seems just poor choices all around, from my perspective.
I think that's understandable. I mean, I haven't watched the clip in a little bit. It's been like a week, but I think it's like, would he have been able to assemble his win line if they had cracked all their treasures and such? Would he have had the mana to do it?
I didn't count the exact mana, but I believe he convinced them to not crack their treasures, and he got, I think, 14 mana off the dockside. I think if they had cracked everything, he would still gotten, I believe, like 7 or 8.
Yeah.
After
But would he have been able to assemble that win line off of the 7?
I don't think so, because he needed 3 for the Wishclaw Talisman, cracking the Wishclaw Talisman. He needed 1 for the Enlightened Tutor. Needed 3 for the Sevin's Reclamation to get the Breach online.
So it would have put him down to no floating mana. I don't remember if he had an LED or anything ready to go.
I don't know.
So that might have. So it might not have been possible. So I think that's where it's kind of an issue. Like, obviously, I personally am a player who never lies and always sticks to my deals and always sticks to my word. So I do believe this player, to be very, very clear from conversations I've had with them and with people who know them. I am fully convinced at this point that he did in fact not see the line. It has been informed to me that he is a newer player on that deck, and that is not a type of strategy he is used to playing, so he's just not used to those lines. And like I can get all that and I can understand all that, but I know that me as a person, if I ever tell anybody I'm not winning this turn, let me have something because I'm not winning this turn, I don't care if I figure out some weird way. If I got something from them in exchange for the fact that I'm not winning, which was them not cracking their treasures, and you were making it very clear that you were not going to do that and trying to talk that you're going to help the table, even if I figure something out, I'm not going to break my word. I'm just not going to win that turn.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I agree with Malcolm too. Like I think there's two sides to this situation. I think on the one side, if you trust the other player when they're telling you this, and you don't make their language clear, if you don't force them to say, okay, what do you mean you're not winning? What does that mean that you're not winning? How do I know? Like what guarantees can you give me? Why do you have to cast this Grand Abolisher if you're not winning? You know, you force them to give you more information, or frankly you interact, or you crack your treasures. You shouldn't just blindly trust people as they go down lines that you can't interact with anymore, right? That's just a mistake. That's a misplay. On the other hand, on the other side of it, you also, I believe it was a misplay of this player, the way that they worded everything, you know, promising specifically to not win, you know, frankly puts them in a corner where they can't proceed to win the game without having outright lied. If they had said anything short of that, if they had said, I don't see a way to win, if they had said, I'm going to try to stop this other player, if they had said, you know, I need this Grand Abolisher so that I can look for answers, anything short of saying, as I'm doing this, don't worry, I'm not winning. Don't worry, I'm not winning. Don't worry, I'm not winning. Any of that could have made the plays perfectly reasonable and acceptable without this huge hoopla that followed. But the fact that they did promise specifically not to win puts them in a position where they then have to decide, am I going to blow my reputation completely at this point, you know, for as long as anyone remembers this event? And is it worth it to do that, to win this game, to get into top 4? Or am I going to be a man of my word and think longer ahead and be like, whoops, I misplayed. I should have made a promise that I can't keep. And now I have to not win here because I made a promise. I know that me personally, you know, like you, Max, and I think, Malcolm, you're a man of your word as well from what I've experienced. Like all of us, we word our things carefully, but I would not have won there in that situation. To me, it's just not worth it. It's not worth that one tournament progression to have everyone know me from that point onward as someone you can't trust. And the reason I say that isn't because, you know, it's honorable. It isn't about being honorable in this case. It's about going forward, you're going to find yourself in games where being trustworthy means the difference between winning and losing. And that's why I believe it is a misplay and incorrect to lie the way that this player lied.
I have a couple of thoughts. I just want to throw in here that as someone who plays a deck where people don't listen to you, and in general, it is very difficult to ask people to let you help them, because the idea of letting me help you is putting me in a position where I can virtually do anything. It's very difficult to ask your opponents for things, and I think putting yourself in a position where you can no longer ask your opponents for anything, like you said, is a very difficult position to be in politically, no matter what deck you're playing. But on top of that, you have also now created a situation where the onus is partially on your opponents to make a decision about their own permanence and whether or not they should allow you to have certain amounts of things. And if you need that much mana to do anything, really, it's pretty obvious that you can find a way to win from that particular position almost. I think most decks are engineered in such a way that if you have 14 mana, you can probably win. And so in essence, this might be a little bit victim blamey here, but you need to make your own game time decisions, not necessarily based on anything that your opponents are saying to you, but also what your own intuition about the game tells you as a player.
Mm-hmm.
And I think here we saw somewhat of a failure of that particular dynamic, where you didn't have to pop all your treasures, you didn't have to pop most of them, you could have popped a few and then taken them off most of the mana and been sort of pseudo responsible, and then said, okay, you can have 8 or 9 or 7 or 6 mana, however much it is. Hopefully that will get you to be able to do something. But if you need to be casting a Grand Abolisher, then you have clearly just you're taking away all your credibility by saying I need to be uninteractable right now, which means no matter what we decide after the fact or what you choose to do after the fact, we can no longer do anything about it.
Yeah, I agree 100%. So next question, regarding the whole situation. So moving on from the lying and trusting and all that kind of stuff, how do you feel about the situation being shared the way that it was? Because that's also a big question. The player lied, they made that situation happen, and at that point, on the other side of it, we have a decision to make. Is it correct to take to Twitter and put that out there and put them on blast?
I think it's fine.
I agree.
To an extent. I think it's important to be careful in how you do it. I don't think it's correct to put them on blast. I think what is appropriate is providing the information and the context. I would have preferred if the clip was uncut rather than being cut the way that it was. I will say I have a preference towards that. I think that having it cut that way can sometimes come across like it's hiding some things that might have occurred. I don't think that's what it was doing, but I would have rather the clip was just uncut to be just fully informational and say, here's what happened. This is what happened to me in my game. You guys let me know your thoughts on it. And I think that that's a totally fair question to ask the community and a totally fair thing to share with the community. I mean, that was something that happened in a streamed game,
it was public information.
But it was public information. Like, there's nothing hidden about that. I think what can be counterproductive, per se, is just putting someone on blast and, insulting them, in a sense. And I'm aware that you can have frustrations with what they did, and I also disagree with what they did. And I think it's fine to say outwardly that I do not like what they did, or I disagree with how this was handled and all that kind of stuff. But I think it's important to stay bottom line respectful.
I agree. And I think in this case, I don't have a problem with the way that it was broadcast. In fact, I think, other than, like you said, not showing the full clip, I thought they were pretty respectful about bringing it up. I don't think they tried to really demean anyone. I don't feel like that any of that happened. However, the reaction to it and the way a lot of the folks who are hiding behind screens, hiding behind Twitter handles, who are comfortable completely demeaning and attacking people, that went on to both sides. Both the player who lied and the player who put it out there. Both of them were attacked pretty viciously, I think, by people on Twitter. Which is, I guess, kind of what you expect at this point. That's, people talk about toxicity in CEDH, and to me, it's more like toxicity in Twitter or toxicity even on Discords. The separation between, people by a screen just creates that environment, and I think that's where a lot of it comes from.
I also found it interesting in the public reaction, the people who don't play CEDH and their responses. There were some that were better than others. Like, if you look at what Saffron Olive from MTG Goldfish says, who does not play CEDH, he phrased it as, he was like, I wonder what people think about this. Like, I wonder what the opinion on this is. Here's kind of my quick thoughts on this, but I don't really know what I'm talking about with CEDH. And he kind of phrased it like that. Versus some 60 card players or non-CEDH players, whatever they are, were like, oh, you're a fucking idiot if you believe this guy. And that was just like all they would say. And that's just, you don't really know how our game works. So I don't really care what you have to say about it in that regard.
I mean, I thought that it was presented. I also thought that the clip was cut in a really unflattering light. On top of that, it was not flattering to the player who was making the, not accusation, I'm looking for a word here, who was just making the point. It makes them look like they made a mistake. in at least from my perspective of how I like when I watch the clip, and even with knowing the context of the game and having been watching the game live, watching the clip really paints the player who posted it in a bad light.
Yeah.
And it just it makes me wonder, like, how much of the onus is on the player who lied versus the player who is calling them out for lying. Like, how can we not place equal onus on both of them for taking actions in a game that affected both of them as players, or inactions in a sense as well? We really have to be self-aware when we evaluate our play and the play of others, like, at the same time. I think
that's fair. I will say that when I saw the original short clip, like you said, it looked much worse for the player who was complaining than the full clip, because when you watch the full clip, to me it's much clearer what happened and how much lying took place.
I actually haven't seen the full clip. Enlighten me.
Yeah, so the shortened clip, you just see I found the line basically, and I didn't know it was there before. I guess I'm winning now. And the other play going, oh, we're lying. I guess we're lying now. And that's kind of it. You don't get a whole lot more than that. Yep. When you watch the full clip, there's this whole conversation about the dockside, and over repeatedly, the player promises not to win multiple times.
Gotcha.
Right? I'm not winning. Don't worry, I'm not winning. I'm not winning. I just need to find something for them. I'm not winning. Over and over and over again. And that, when you watch that clip, you watch the full clip, all of a sudden you're like, wow, this was pretty egregious. When you watch the first clip, you're like, I mean, it just doesn't seem that severe, put it that way.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Okay, well, enough with the lying. I think we need to move on now to some of the other stuff that we got to talk about. And unfortunately, we got to go right to the one that I hate the most and I'm so tired of talking about, and that's the cheating. Again.
Oh, yeah.
Again.
Did I give the the lowdown on this guy?
I think, Max, you got to take this one because you've got a lot of information on the whole situation.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. So flashback to Treasure Series 11. We are in round 5, the win and in for this group of players. All of the players in this pod are on their win and in round. Couldn't tell if you were about to sneeze or if that was.
That was a total yawn. You will definitely know when I'm about to sneeze.
That was like a.
It looks like let's trying to hold it in kind of long.
I was trying not to like yawn out loud like on the stream. I'd be like,
you're good.
I'm good at editing that shit out. Believe me, you'd be amazed at the stuff that's happened on the show, dude. There was my favorite was when we're just sitting here talking, and his dad opens the door to the room that he's in and walks in like his underwear. He just walks in his underwear, like walks across the screen, like while we're talking.
This is back when I was in Costa Rica and I was with my parents.
Oh Jesus!
And yeah, so my dad, when I told him I was recording, I guess this was like on episode 2 or 3. The show had just started, and I guess in his brain it was just an audio recording for like a podcast. So even though I told him, I was like, hey, I'm going to be in the room recording, like, leave me alone for a couple hours. You know, he came in and I'm literally like on video right in front of me, and I'm watching my like naked father behind me, and I'm like tapping him, telling him to get out. And he's like brushing my hand away. Like, he's like, I'm being quiet. Like, fuck off. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, but the hilarious thing is I didn't know this even happened until I went to edit the video. I go to edit it. I'm like, what the hell?
Yeah. What am I watching here?
Yeah, it was pretty funny.
Anyway,
funny.
Go ahead.
Anyway, you can leave all that in. I don't give a shit. But so we're at Treasure Series 11. We're in round 5, the win and in for every player in this pod. In first seat, you have the player that we're going to be talking about. In second seat, you have my guy Brian Barton. In third seat, you have my little Snazzleite, Snazzerific on Dargo Thras. And in fourth seat, was it Sir Danzig? I'm honestly not even sure. I think it was Sir Danzig. But all like great players that I respect, you know, in 2, 3, and 4 there. They're all in their winning in. They're excited for this game. Player in first seat's on Tivit, and they do their shuffling, and he keeps his first 7, and his hand is Land, Mox Diamond, Land to pitch, Lotus Petal, Thoracle, Consult. Brian Barton has the Force of Will pitching pack for him, and he has Force of Will blue card. So, of course, when you have a God tier 8 like that, it's worth raising the question. And Snaz immediately went and checked his video. And for any of us who are used to playing in these online events, the second Snaz shared that video with us, we were like, oh, that's blatantly cheating. Blatantly. blatantly cheating. You will see this man, you know, he appears on the screen. He's the last one to join the spell table link. His piles are already separated a little bit. And when he's shuffling what is his leftmost pile, he is purposely very careful to never change like the top 15 cards, like very careful to never shuffle that top section. And he starts breaking them into 3 piles. And, you know, a lot of times people like grab the tops of 2 piles and shuffle them together. Whenever he grabs cards from that pile, he picks up the pile, grabs the bottom half of that pile to shuffle it with other things. Like, does a lot of like very blatantly obvious stuff to never change this top. And then what he does is when he puts his piles down 1, 2, and 3 in front of him, he does not mark them with hands or anything as 1, 2, or 3, which means since it's one of the piles on the edges, he's essentially given a 66% chance of getting the pile he wants because someone can name 1 or 3 and he gets what he wants.
Yep.
It was very egregious. It was very obvious. And all of us who looked at this video immediately were like, ban this motherfucker. And we were shocked and astonished, to be honest, because this was a round that I ID'd. So I did not play. So I like Snaz finished his game, you know, 5 minutes into the round because that was the turn one on the play. And so he immediately was like watching this video with me 10 minutes later. And I'm like, yeah, this is crazy. And he immediately sends it into the judges and all that kind of stuff. And I will give a little credit to the judges. It's a long day. It's like 13 hours into a tournament. They're dealing with a bunch of shit. I can understand some things being missed there to an extent, to be very clear, which from my conversations with them afterwards, what they were looking at and the final decision they made after looking at videos of this other player's rounds was they were like, they just viewed his shuffling as consistently really, really bad and a terrible bad habit. But they did not see anything that proved intent to gain advantage based on what he did there in comparison to his previous shuffles. This is what we were told at the time. I'm aware this is blasphemous, Malcolm. Have you seen the video, by the way, of the round 5?
I have not actually seen the video.
Okay.
I heard the story.
I could show you it.
And I was like,
I could show you it after
sounds like
this.
cheating to me, but I would love to see
Oh,
the
it's
video.
bonkers.
Send it to me after.
It's so obvious.
It took me 1.5 looks at this to be like, this is obvious. But so, you know, from my conversations that I've now had with Efond, who was the head judge of Chaos, he was really locked in on the shuffling. And he was really focused on the shuffling being consistently this like bad broken into piles thing where it's always like tilted a little bit. And they were comparing that to his earlier rounds where he had still like lost games and drawn. And so in their brain, they were like, he's kind of shuffling the same way every time. So it seems like a bad habit. And so we think it's just a bad habit and we're going to give him a warning and telling him to shuffle better. And he just got lucky on the hand was where they stood on it. And they stood on it for this entire past week and a half until last night. And so he was allowed, this man made top 16 and he was allowed to go to his top 16 game. But they did have a conversation with him where they said, you need to fix your shuffling. This is atrocious. You will not get another warning. And a judge was in watching his top 16 game. And even during his shuffling for his top 16 game, his shuffling was atrocious. So they literally gave him a game loss before the game even started.
Makes sense.
So he did not even get to play in the top 16 game, really. But it kind of like scuffs the whole top 16.
Yes,
you know what I mean?
because now you're
But so,
Go on.
But so this entire video that Snaz, you know, sent and posted on YouTube, which was of the 5 minutes that his round 5 game was like so clear to everyone in the community who watched it as cheating. And so people were pretty up in arms this past week about how in the fuck is this guy not banned?
I have
like genuinely.
Sorry.
Yeah,
I have
for
a
it.
mild question. Why did they not, instead of having a 3-pod, why did they not pull up 17?
Because they had already started the round.
They'd have to repair. They'd have to repair all.
They would
Oh, I
have to.
guess
They would have to
not.
repair and do everything.
Yeah.
No, you could just pull up 16.
No, they would have to
17
repair. No,
16.
because
You would just
17
go last.
Well, no,
move
'cause
to a
he
different
wasn't-
pot. Like it would mess all the pots up.
He wasn't number.
He wasn't
wasn't
last.
number 16. He wasn't number 16.
It changes the seating completely.
So it would have changed everything.
Well,
But here's my bigger question.
yeah, it would have
question.
changed everybody below him.
Why? I don't understand why in that instance would you not take immediate action? Because to me, it's so obvious. And watching the video, it's not even close to questionable. Like it is blatantly obvious. Why would you not take some kind of action to repair the damage caused to those 3 other players immediately? I would.
So here's
I would boot that guy
So you have to
and restart
recognize.
the game.
100% agree. Like I think we're all going to be in agreement on a lot of this. All I can say is what I heard from them on their reasonings for things, just to like express it so people can be aware. And that was because I had a long conversation with Aya yesterday, and then a long conversation with Efond yesterday. So I got a bunch of information on this stuff because I was giving a bunch of feedback regarding a bunch of things and wanted clarity on these situations before I talked about it, and then things progressed from there. But so pretty much what they said is from the way they looked at the videos, where they just missed some things, which is, I think, kind of egregious, but they missed some things. Their opinion was they could not prove intent to gain advantage. And the intent is what classifies something as cheating. And without that intent, they can't classify it as cheating, and they can't immediately ban someone. The second there is any showing of intent is when they can ban someone appropriately, and like there's no questions about it. And so the problem with repairing anything for the 3 players, like giving the other 3 players free entry to the next event, doing anything like that in their eyes was admitting that the player cheated when they had ruled after looking at evidence that the player had not cheated. And that's a bad look because that's very wishy-washy.
But if they knocked him out for egregious shuffling at the very beginning of the game, that to me should constitute some sort of reparation to the remaining 3 players in the pod, because they did have to exercise consequences on this player. So if they did have to exercise consequences on this player for something that they did confirm that he was continuing to do, how does that not constitute some sort of...
Right, so pretend he's not cheating for a second.
Okay.
Pretend he wasn't cheating, which obviously he was, but pretend he wasn't cheating. The view of Chaos at that time was he had not cheated, which means he had not done anything to gain intentional advantage, which means even though his shuffling was absolutely garbage, it technically didn't have an effect on the game.
But then if it wasn't going to have an effect on the game, then why was he removed from the game?
Yeah.
Like, that's what I'm saying.
Because
like, if you have to exercise, if you have to punish someone for an action, then that's what I'm
See,
asking.
my problem with all of this, and let me just be clear. I want to be very clear here. I really appreciate Chaos. I really appreciate the people who are running these tournaments, especially Aya, especially the judges. Like, these guys and gals are putting in a lot of work to try to make these events possible, and like, I love them for it. However, let's just call it what it is. We are being way too soft on this problem. We just are, and we've had a couple of chances now to get tougher. You know, we had the conversation, you know, a few months back about why would you give people a 6-month ban when you should be giving people a lifetime ban, and eventually the wheels turned and the policy changed. But here we are again, where we seem to be deferring in favor of the cheaters. You know, we seem to be like being cautious to protect the cheater. And I feel like it should be the opposite of that. I feel like if there's significant suspicion that you're cheating, take action immediately and then verify. And yes, that...
Well, to be clear, if there's significant suspicion, they are always watching. I do want to be very clear about that. You have to give him credit there.
It's not enough. It's not enough to watch. Like, in this case, like, this looks so suspect that the immediate action should be, I'm sorry, you cannot continue in this tournament. And I understand that means that there's going to be situations where people who are not cheating, who just get a god hand and just get lucky, and their shuffling just wasn't great, and they're going to get penalized unfairly. Like, that's going to happen. I don't think it's going to happen a lot, but I could see it happening once or twice.
Okay, so I think God Hand with bad shuffling, yes. I think you can take some preemptive action, but I think God Hand alone, no. Like, it's possible for someone to get a God Hand.
No,
that exists.
for sure, but it has to be accompanied with suspected, other stuff. Like, there has to be more than just a God Hand. But defer on the side of kicking the cheater rather than giving them the benefit of the doubt.
It's a very sketchy line to walk, because you don't want to take anything too far where people are afraid to just like have a good hand. You know what I mean? Like, that's not reasonable. But essentially what happened here was, after this week and a half of outrage, where some people were even calling for boycotts against this tournament series to try and until they fix this problem, because it was so obvious to everyone else that this player had clearly cheated. So I ended up in a feedback session with Aya. This video is going to come out in a couple days, but on Monday, February 26th. And during that feedback session, where the idea was to just gain information so I could talk about things appropriately during this episode, some questions I asked her, she gave me the answer of, it's better if you talk to Efont. And at the end of our session, after we had talked about the Tivit thing a little bit, she did give me access to all of the previous videos that they had from his earlier rounds. And so I didn't have access to the round 1 video because they didn't have that one either, but I was able to watch his round 2, 3, and 4 video. And when I watched these videos, which what we had been told was they had noticed habitual consistency between how he did at each round. So what I was expecting was to see this exact same bullshit every single round, to try and give them some like benefit of the doubt. That's what I was expecting based on what we had been told. Instead, what I saw was clear deviation from everything I had seen that made me think he was cheating in round 5. So I actually don't necessarily think they were cheating in the rounds that I saw. I think the win and got to them and they went for it, is what I'm pretty confident of at this point. But so I immediately messaged this to Aya. I was like, here are the things he does in round 5 that he does not do in rounds 2, 3, and 4 after watching all of them, and he didn't do them in any of them. And she was like, okay, like write us up a list and we will take a look at it. Flash forward a couple hours, I end up on a call with Ifond after messaging him saying I wanted to chat about some things anyway. We had a very productive conversation, which I'm sure will come up more as we talk about some of the other things here with what happened in Lotus Series 4. But when we came around to the discussion about the Tivit player, he was about to give me the full explanation of his thought process there, and I kind of said, like, I get the gist, mostly, on how you got to these decisions. Do you mind if I pull up my screen share, and I show you what I see in round 5, and the differences that I see in 2, 3, and 4? And he said, sure. And so I share my screen, I pull up the round 5, I zoom in on this player, I talk about the shuffling, I talk about how the top 15 cards never change versus his shuffling any other pile, and in any other videos, his top does change. Not always perfectly consistently, but it generally does change. I point out the big ones are pulling from the bottom, the pick up the pile and pull from the bottom, which there's no feasible way that you would ever do that naturally.
Yeah.
That's not a habit. That's just inherently inefficient. It made no sense to me. The first time I ever saw that, I was like, that is ridiculous. And so I pointed that out to him, and Ifan goes, I missed that. Very quickly, I will say, I will give Ifan credit on when I pointed some things out. He was very quick to admit that he missed these things and humbly accept that, like, he missed some things and he did need to reevaluate this. And so I pointed out that, and the other one I pointed out to him was I said, look, he does not mark his piles 1, 2, or 3. We then go back to videos 2, 3, and 4, where the guy shuffles much more reasonably every single time, clearly not protecting the top 15 cards of anything. He does grab from the top every time. Not a single time in any other video does he pick up a pile and grab from the bottom. And every single time he breaks down his piles 1, 2, and 3 in every other video, he puts his fingers on 1 and 3 and marks them as 1 and 3. And what Ifan said is, you are correct here. With the difference of him pulling from the bottom and not marking the piles, you have now provided me evidence that shows intent to gain advantage. And he immediately, after our call, went on a call with Aya. They went and talked with Chaos, and then they officially banned the player yesterday evening. Which they got to the correct decision in the end, which is honestly the most important thing overall. I do want to say that is my opinion on it. I do not like how they got to it. I do not agree with their process of how they got to it. I do not agree with the rashness at which their decisions were made. I really wish they had looked at them more deeply. It's like kind of surprising to me, and still I think surprising to a lot of people, that like these things that I pointed out to Ifan, the pulling from the bottom, the not marking the piles, these were things that people have been talking about all week. They're not new information that like only I saw. Like this was something that most people generically noticed who play CEDH. So I do think it is a bit of a problem that it was missed by a collection of judges who apparently watched this video.
Multiple times.
I do know I've heard multiple times, which I know Ifond and people from Chaos specifically, I think had watched like the round 5 and maybe some of the other videos. From some conversations with some other people who've said they were involved, it was they only saw the round 5, but they never got to compare it to some of the earlier rounds, even though they were involved in some decision making. That might not be 100% correct, but that's something I've been told by someone. I definitely don't want to like misinform anything here. But there's obviously problems with this process. Like, it is concerning that these really blatant things were missed.
Especially by...
And that I do want to point out.
Professionals, like people who are trying to do this as a professional thing and a professional organizational thing.
Right.
Mm-hmm. This is worrisome.
Very worrisome. Mm-hmm. I agree. And I'm gonna be the asshole here. Like, I'm sorry, but Chaos, you guys bear the responsibility for this. Right, it's your responsibility to safeguard these tournaments, and it cannot be that Max here goes, reviews the videos, appeals to you guys, sits down, shows evidence, puts it all together for you, and then action takes place. And frankly, that's what seems to be happening every time. You know, Memo has done a lot of detective work to identify cheaters. You know, it needs to be Waffle as well, yes. It needs to be the tournament organizers who have the responsibility for doing this, and not us, the community, the people who want to compete. And I keep hearing lots of conversations about, you know, our responsibility as players, things like you really have to vigilantly watch your shuffler, across from you and really like be part of the solution to detect the cheaters. And yeah, some of that is true, but at the end of the day, the buck stops at the tournament organizer. They have to be responsible for enforcing this and going after it. And if they can't, if they're not capable of doing that, then I don't want to play in the tournaments. I'm sorry, I don't want to play in them. And I know I'm not the only one who feels that way.
I will say, Wounded, do let me know when they send you a check for all your hard work.
Seriously.
No, they just send me checks for the winnings.
Well, I hope you keep getting them.
I'm on salary at one top 4 a week.
Put them in a retainer.
That was
Yeah.
Yeah, but no, I mean, I do think like it is also. I do absolutely want to say like it is to some extent as the players, you do need to be vigilant. You do need to be watching your other players shuffling. Like just to show, if my table is in front of me here and my computer is off at kind of this angle, what I am doing is I am shuffling like this. I'm not looking at my deck while I'm shuffling. I'm looking at my computer and I'm watching the other player shuffle. Which can be a little annoying, and I wish I didn't have to do that. But it is important to do that. And the other really important thing is, dude, some people are just too afraid to call a judge for any reason, whether it's concerned with your opponent shuffling, whether it's concerned about anything it done. If you have the thought that crosses your mind of maybe I should call a judge here, just call a judge. That is literally their job. It is the reason they are there. And if you're worried about saying something out loud in front of the rest of your pod, when the judge gets there, just say, hey, judge, can you pull me into a private chat? I would like to ask you a question. And then you can, without any fear of public opinion, ask the judge your honest question, and they can give you honest answers. And any concerns about this, it's really helpful if someone brings something up. If you're playing against me and you think I'm doing something potentially a little suspect with my shuffling, but you're not sure, just call a judge and ask to go to a private chat and say to the judge, hey, I just wanted to say I'm a little concerned about Wounded Satellite shuffling. I think it looked a little insufficient. Just something to keep in mind if you hear about it from other players. I'm gonna ask him to shuffle his deck again, but just, if you hear that from anyone else, just know that they're not the only one to think it. And giving them that little piece of information, just telling the judges someone's name like that allows them to be more vigilant, allows them to be more on top of things, because it's really difficult for people when, like, I do not think the Tivit player cheated in all 5 rounds from what I saw, but if he had been cheating in all 5 rounds, which most cheaters do, most cheaters are every round they're cheating, it's a little awkward when it's only brought up at round 5. And a lot of times when we do catch these people in round 5, once that stuff starts coming out that this person might have been cheating or this person did cheat, there's always this influx of people from rounds 1, 2, 3, and 4 that say, oh, I had suspicions, man. He was so sketchy in our game. If you're worried about someone and had those suspicions and you thought they were sketchy in your game, mention that to somebody. Mention it, because then suddenly they're watching that player and they can catch things more efficiently. And that allows us to be more productive.
I do want to mention, I do want to come back to this later. There's a topic that we're going to talk about in a little while, I think, that I do want to come back to this on. But I want to make a commentary about the idea that we are coming into this from like a social, open, friendly standpoint. And as it's a multiplayer format, like talking amongst yourselves and your opponents becomes a thing, and it's a very social thing. And so we're very quick, I think, to be lenient, as this is a social, fun format, rather than a 1v1, I'm here to kill you, you're here to kill me sort of dynamic. And I think that really plays a part in this reticence to say anything, like, at any moment.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm guilty of it myself. Like, I do not call a judge as often as I should because I don't want to upset the balance of the table. I'm guilty of it. 100%.
I call judges all the time. Dude, when I was on Talion, I had judge come watch for slow play on copy paste.
Huh.
It's like
I was ready. I don't know. I don't give a fuck, dude. If you want to get mad at me because I call the judge, get mad. I don't give a shit. Like, that's what they're there for. I'm there to play Magic correctly. Don't be afraid to call a judge. Don't ever be afraid to call a judge.
You're 100% right. I'm 100% wrong. Like, I need to be more vigilant myself. But yeah, but I hear all of that, and I still feel like I need the tournament organizers to step up more, and I need them to take more responsibility than they have, frankly. And as much as I love some of the people who are responsible, like, in the same way that you're afraid to call a judge on people, like I'm calling a judge on chaos. Like, you guys need to get your shit together. Like,
I would like an announcement from them. I would like an announcement, because at this point on Tuesday, February 27th, we have not gotten one yet. No. They have declared to some of us in like our private servers that, hey, this guy's banned, and he's now listed on their ban list, which is a new list they have on the Chaos server. Like, they have done that, but they haven't come out with an announcement. And I think an announcement that kind of encompasses, hey, we missed some things on this one. Taking a little bit of that accountability, saying, yep, we did not fully examine the evidence. We had enough.
Yeah,
we could have digged deeper. We could have looked closer. This was eventually brought to our attention, and we're glad it did. But this is something we should have been able to catch on our own. I think a little bit of accountability there. Would be
it's
really,
also
really nice.
It's also a message to people who are considering cheating that you will be caught. You will be caught, and you will be outed, and it will be bad. So do not cheat. Like, that message needs to be loud and resounding, and not having an announcement is the opposite of that. All right, enough with the cheating stuff. We got to move on because we got a lot of stuff to talk about, and we've been on for a while already. So, like, I think the next thing in my mind is the stalling situation that happened is in the same tournament.
No, next one. This one was Lotus.
This is Lotus.
I thought the stalling was Lotus. Yes.
So
I don't play enough tournaments.
Yeah. So the cheating and the lying was in Treasure Series 11, and the stalling and the stream stuff was in Lotus.
Okay. So I'll talk about the stalling just for a minute, and then we can get into the. I think you go through the streaming situation because you have a lot of information on that as well. But Malcolm, I want to hear your response to this as well. So, do you know what happened? Did you hear what happened?
I know what happened. I actually spoke to the offending player about it personally, and
Memo's cool if we say his
name.
Memo.
Yeah,
I spoke to Memo about it. I get it. It sucks. But I mean, we're in a format where you are trying to corner case. I can understand the desire to. You don't have to. I don't think. I think there are more legal ways to kill 5 seconds on a clock if that's what you're really desperate to do. Honestly, I think this one was kind of an open and shot. Honestly, I don't really have a lot to say here other than don't do that.
You want to tell everybody what happened?
If you do that, don't get caught.
Tell everybody what happened. Tell everybody what happened.
So at the 5 second marker of his game, I don't remember which round this was. I believe it was in Swiss at some point. Memo cracked a tinder wall towards the end of his turn with 5 seconds on the clock to force a draw. And then the judge called on him, and the judge gave him a stalling warning, like a stalling DQ, because he was literally trying to waste 5 seconds on the clock on purpose.
Yeah, and from what I understood,
that is to be very clear. The reason that it is a DQ and not just a game loss or something is because stalling like that is viewed in the same category as intent to gain advantage through not good actions, which is what falls into a similar category as cheating. And no one here is calling Memo a cheater. No. Just to be very clear, we all love and respect the absolute fuck out of Memo. But this is categorized in that similar way because it is like trying to gain that advantage from doing that. And
from a non-gameplay action.
Yeah, from a non-gameplay relevant action, and so that's why he was disqualified from this event. And there are totally things you can do that like take up some time that are totally okay to do.
Oh, it's happened to me. It's happened to me. I've been on the other side of that. It sucks, but it totally.
Let me think
totally
for
legitimate.
a minute. Let me think about that. I'm not sure exactly how I win. Maybe I can find a way. Let me look at my cards 3 more times real quick. Hold on.
Well, not even doing that, but like going and taking some game actions.
Yeah.
Just being like, okay, I would like to see your graveyard. I could see it being relevant if I exile this card with my Armored Scrap Gorger. That might have an effect on your possible breach land that you might be going for. Oh, I would like to go to combat. I would like to swing my Crom at you. Okay, I'll have a Timna trigger. I'm going to draw that 1 card, even if I know that I have nothing I could possibly draw that matters here. But theoretically, like these game actions are legal, and they take 20 extra, 30 extra seconds, and you can do those things. I had a Tainted Pact in one of my games that I looked at every card one by one.
I'm going to activate Sisse, and I have to decide between all the legends in my deck. What am I going to get?
What am I going to get here?
Let me think for a minute on this Florian trigger for a second. I have 3 cards. I got to decide which one I want.
But all of these things, they have actual thought. They have potential to have relevant game effect. There is lines that they could matter versus cracked tinder wall with nothing in your hand that can use the
Right.
board. You know, like a really good way to think about this here is if I'm playing Kinnan and I activate Kinnan and there's 2 creatures in that pile and I want to think about what has the better effect on the board, I'm allowed to think about that for 30 seconds and that's reasonable. Can I sit there and go, I would like to tap my Basalt Monolith. I would like to use that 3 mana to untap my Basalt Monolith.
Then
I would like to tap my Basalt Monolith.
No.
These are not game actions that have any effect on the game and produce nothing. And therefore I am wasting time and that is not allowed.
Yes, but let me point out one very, in my mind, the most important contrast between this situation and the lying situation. Okay, and the difference is this: how did Memo respond to the situation? How did he respond to being pointed at as a problem?
Well, you see,
What?
like a beautiful human.
Like a beautiful human being. He
Yeah, I
stepped
did.
up.
Yeah.
He said, yes, I
did
fucked
it.
up. I should not have done that. I was wrong. And took responsibility and ownership of what happened.
Mm-hmm.
That is not the case for what happened with the lying situation. With the lying situation, the player said, I'll do it again. That's what he said. He said,
He got pretty mad after a little while, which actually I would like to read one thing that I said to him in our private conversation. I think what's important is because the way this went is the person who did lie was very, very apologetic at first, right?
mm-hmm.
He was very, very clear that he did not mean to do this, didn't want to be viewed in this way. And the responses he got from people were really, really negative. And I can understand that getting frustrating. But the problem is, I said, so you can show remorse and people can still be mad about what you did. They view what you did as wrong. Saying sorry doesn't fix what happened. If I punch you in the face when I'm drunk and I say, sorry, I need to work on that, I promise to be better in the future, you can still be mad about what happened when the wound is fresh. That's natural. Your response to them being upset about something they are understandably upset about was to 180 away from any sense of remorse and say, fuck you then, rather than giving credit and respect to their honest frustrations.
Right. Exactly.
And that's the issue.
Yes.
If you are saying that you're apologetic and you feel bad about what you did and you want that to be the narrative, you got to stick to it. You can't just get frustrated that people immediately don't go, oh, you're sorry? Cool, great.
In fairness, it does suck to get dragged on Twitter.
100%.
But
100%.
at the same time, you should stay true to what you believe. Like you said, like if you really don't believe that you did anything wrong, fine, I guess. You are entitled to believe anything that you want to believe.
It was a legal game action.
Yeah.
None of what he did was illegal in
but
the
I'll-
sense of the
I'll-
game.
Nothing.
It's
I'll
just
put-
unacceptable in the social sense
And
of
I'll
what we
put
generally
some
agree to be
speculation
okay.
out here. Like, I don't believe that he doesn't think anything was wrong with it. I don't believe that. I just don't believe it. I think at some point he dug his heels in and didn't want to take it on anymore. But I think underneath all of that, when you really get down to it, I think he knows that was a problem, or he wouldn't have been apologetic about it in the first place.
I'll throw it out there. I think that it was the publicity of it all that made him turn around. as
Yeah,
you
I think
said.
so too. Yeah.
Like, if it had just gone on and it had happened in the game and everybody just kind of moved on and just trotted along to the next game, without this actually becoming a thing, I think he would have just apologized and it would have been the end of it and no one would have been the wiser really at the end. I think the fact that it became such a public blow up because of the other players' reaction to it and their dragging of it on Twitter to their fans, to other people, to everyone who would listen, essentially. I feel like I might get obstinate too. Like you are partially at fault here, as we discussed. Like you decided not to take certain game actions. You decided to do this. You decided to do that. I did this. I did that. And now you're trying to blame me for playing the game.
Yeah.
I think I would get a
think-
little frustrated as well. But that doesn't change, like you said. Yeah.
Yeah, but like I said, I have tremendous respect for Memo for being willing to own it the way he did, even though I'm sure it was difficult. And I'm sorry, but the player who lied, I have less respect for them because they weren't willing to own it. Period.
Yeah, I agree.
Just say you lied.
I mean, it's also
Just say.
yeah, which also there is like a clear separation as well between player in a game and person as a person. Like I don't think this person's like a bad
No, me
person
either.
or anything.
Yeah, me either.
Like I don't have any negative views from them outside of the
I like
game.
the guy.
I mean, I would
Like I
would
have I have opinions on them as a person for how they've handled situations after the game because I don't like how they've handled the situation. I think that's a little showing of who they are as a person. But disregarding all that, if you are a complete asshole, lying piece of crap in a game, that doesn't mean you're a bad dude. Like, that's a totally separate thing. I'm just gonna not like you when we're playing a game.
I'll just be wary of you, and I will not listen to anything you say. That's it.
Yeah, I don't believe
We
I don't believe a word coming out of your mouth, my guy.
We go for a burger after we have one, but I'm not. Anything you say in the game is suspect to me now. I can't.
Forever.
All
right, moving on because we got to get through this. So, let's talk about the Twitch stream situation.
Oh Jesus!
Did you hear?
Oh, my back? I'm back on the spotlight.
It's all you again, Max. But Malcolm, did you hear about this one? Did you hear about this?
Yeah, I did actually. This one hit close to home. Actually, one of the stream offenders or potential. I don't want to say it this way because in the end, Chaos cleared him of any wrongdoing. So I don't want to say anything of that nature. There was suspicion of one of our dear Sisei players, Baneslayer 88. I don't want to really everybody knows who is who in this particular situation. It was rather public, but I think that there was some suspicion of him being in the stream during his game, and he was clear.
His finals game,
in fact. No, I believe it was his top 16 game, and he was allowed to move on to finals from there, where he won.
Okay.
It was the top 16 game. So I think that I'm of two different opinions on this matter, namely the whole stream sniping thing. First off, I don't think that this player cheated in this particular scenario. I'll say that outright. I don't think that they cheated. The person that I know that they are outside of game is not a cheater in general. I do, however, I have irks with Chaos on this particular one. The way that Chaos outlines their rules for stream sniping, it does say that you should make sure that you are not in the stream at all when you are playing a match that is on stream. And this makes
or even just playing a match.
Exactly.
They don't even care if you're in any game, you're not allowed to watch the stream.
Exactly.
That's very clear.
And
they say it at the beginning of every player meeting.
Exactly. And this is why I'm a little upset at Chaos in this particular scenario. Not because I think that this player was intentionally trying to cheat, but because this rule is so well outlined that even I know it, and I have only been to 2 online events since December. I think that this rule is so well outlined that we know the consequences of it by now, and that Chaos's ruling on this, I feel, was incorrect. Even though I'm on this player's side, I do feel like this was Chaos dropping the ball.
Well, so here's the difference, because there were 2 of these situations in this top 16. The first one was in my top 16 game. The player who was number 16 going into top 16, a good friend of mine, a guy I've coached and I play with regularly, really good dude. You know, someone I wholeheartedly believe would not be doing anything with any intent to gain advantage or anything like that. Where we are in our top 16 game, he is in 4th seat. It is Narset going first. It is Naestrom on Tameshi going second. Myself on Blueform going third. And this player on Malcolm Temna going 4th. And we are 1 turn cycle through the game. 1 turn cycle. We've all had 1 turn. We're on Narset's 2nd turn. Narset costs Dockside. Dockside trigger on the stack. We're talking about Naestrom cracking his Lotus Petal. And a judge comes in and goes, 4th player, I need to talk to you. And they're gone for 10 minutes. And turns out the situation was, which I know this guy, I know this to be true. He uses a laptop just like me. He's got 1 monitor and he uses Spell Table on Google Chrome. So he has a Spell Table open on the full screen in front of him. And in a minimized other browser on a muted tab, he had the stream running from when round 5 was going because he ID'd round 5 and watched the stream like a lot of us do. And so he had just forgotten it was there. But we're a couple minutes into this game. It's not like anything could have, it's not like any advantage could have actually been gained. And so, the judge immediately comes in and says, oh, we saw your name on the viewer screen. And the big difference between this situation and the Baneslayer situation is when they asked this player if he did have the stream open in a tab and he looked through his tab, he goes, oh, I do. I'm sorry. It was from before. It's just in a muted tab. I apologize. But he admitted he did have the stream tab open versus Baneslayer, who said, I do not have the stream open 100% and completely, whether it's truthful or not, said, I do not have the stream open. And that has what has caused a big discourse on the Baneslayer one of how long is this potential lag that someone's name could show up in the viewer thing, yada, yada, yada. But so in our game, we were really frustrated because the judge comes in. He announces this ruling that the player in our match is given a game loss and is no longer in the match. And I slam my hand on the table and say, I would like to appeal. That is ridiculous. We are 1 turn into this fucking game. It is obvious that no advantage could have possibly been gained. Can we let this guy play? And one of the most beautiful things, the only part about this game that I genuinely loved, was that myself, Naestrom, and the Narset player in first seat, all on the exact same page. All three of us immediately up in arms saying, let the guy play. This is ridiculous. You know, we do not want to scuff this game over this stupid thing that is obviously an accident. We're like a couple minutes into this game. And the judge goes, you know, I was not expecting this reaction. Let me go talk to another judge. And so we call the other player back into the game because he had already left the spell table. We're like, come back, bro, come back. Like, you know, we're fighting for you. And he comes back, and then the judges reappear a few minutes later after discussing, and they say, we have to stand with our original ruling on this one, and he will be given a game loss. And I immediately say, okay, I want to be very clear that I strongly disagree with you here, but I respect your ruling. Next question, can we finish resolving our dockside ETB trigger so we don't fuck over Jacob here? I think his name is Jacob or Jason, the Narset player in first seat. Like, Jacob, like there's no reason that this man should be denied his extra treasures because a player has randomly been given a game loss with his dockside ETB on the stack. And again, one of the things I love about this game, Naestrom and myself, the two people that this negatively affects, on the same page saying, let this trigger resolve. Let's not make this game a scuffed as fuck game for no reason. And the judge goes, let me go convene with the other judges for a few minutes. And then they come back a few minutes later and they go, when we are giving a player a game loss, they immediately disappear at instant speed. So his artifacts will not be on the board for this dockside trigger. And we're like, what?
Yeah, completely ridiculous.
Like, I don't give a shit if I win or lose this game, but I would like it to be a fair, reasonable game. You know what I mean? But this game was just scuffed as fuck. And what's so frustrating is Jacob had... He's still because me and Naestrom were in the same agreement where Naestrom could have cracked his Lotus Spell at this point and taken him off of Narset mana. I immediately was like, don't do that. And he was like, don't worry, I'm not going to, like 100%. So we were very reasonable about that. So he still had the treasures to play Narset, but the difference was he would have been able to play Narset with a few extra mana and he had a fish in hand. So he was going to play the fish and then play Narset with haste to hopefully be able to like protect anything he does and like go on this immediate win combo turn. But because now he had exact mana for Narset and would not be able to play his fish or not protect it in any way, shape, or form, he decided not to cast Narset that turn. Come to find out, where the game quickly progresses into some other bullshit that we don't really have to get into this episode. But if he had just cast Narset that turn and swung, he wins that game.
Right.
And so, and that is not the end result of the game. Naestrom won a couple turns later. You know, because he didn't do it that turn, we were able to get rid of his generator servant so he couldn't cast Narset with haste, and you know, other things occurred that completely warped this game. And this game was so scuffed. This game was so beyond scuffed.
Right.
And this was one of the reasons I talked to Aya and Afon yesterday. And the conversations we had with them, you know, I gave them some very clear feedback, especially when I was talking to Afon. I was like, I think it is incredibly important for you to be able to be contextual and take some amount of deviation from the IPG when it is reasonable. And I think that these are the types of situations that you can look at the situation and say, this is obviously what I should do. This is obviously what is correct to keep the integrity of the game intact. And I think that that's more important than following the pure philosophy of the IPG. That's my personal opinion, and that's what I told him. He has explained his philosophy to me, and I can empathize with it. I don't agree with it, but I can respect it. Where describing the player 4 stream situation where he was given the match loss, what he told me is he goes, I did not like giving that ruling, is what he told me. He said, like, that genuinely hurt me to do because I knew he didn't actually do anything wrong. And I knew that this sucks to be doing. But he says very clearly, I am very by the book. I follow the IPG. That is the philosophy I choose to go with at the beginning of any tournament, of every tournament, and I choose to stick by that philosophy. And I can respect that. Don't agree with it, but I can respect it. And so he says, when I look at what the IPG says about these situations, when I look at what category this falls into, it falls into outside information. That is just the natural category that having the stream up falls into. And he says, when I look at the punishments or responses to that situation, there is only one option. It's not one where I have a list of options based on severity or I can make some deviated decision. It is very simply listed as punishment, match loss. That's it. Cut and dry. That's the only option the IPG presents.
So go ahead, Malcolm. You go first.
No, you go first, because I have something kind of extended to say about this. I have some questions that I want to ask and ask the community at large and things like that.
So here's my biggest problem with all of this. My biggest problem with all of this is rules that are unenforceable are not rules. And when it comes to trying to prevent people from watching stream, That is an unenforceable rule, and I'll tell you why. How many Twitch accounts do you have? You only have one. How difficult would it be to create a second?
Oh, so easy.
Ridiculously easy. So trying to enforce a rule based on people using their own ID to watch a Twitch stream and thinking that they're using it to gain advantage is a flawed idea from inception. Because anyone who wanted to gain outside information by watching the Twitch stream does it by just creating a second Twitch account that's unidentifiable and watching the stream anytime they want.
Or you could just log on your, well, not to give other people ideas, but you could just get on your phone on a different Twitch account and just...
That's what I'm saying.
Hi.
Yeah. 100%. 100%.
Who am I?
What do you guys think? What do you guys think this kid and player should do here? What do you think his best course of action is?
Oh my god!
But that's my thing. It's completely ridiculous. It's completely ridiculous and completely unenforceable. And frankly, from my opinion, there should be no penalty for anyone watching the stream. Tell people not to do it, but you can't stop them. You're not going to be able to stop them. It's not reasonable to go and eject players based on it. It just is completely stupid. I'm sorry, and I hate to say it like that, but that's the reality of it. Is like we keep looking at these webcam situations and trying to enforce rules that are just do nothing. They do nothing, and this is an example of that.
My problem overall with this is not necessarily whether you enforce it or not. Like, if you want to enforce it, fine. If you don't want to enforce it, fine. But please enforce it with some level of consistency, please. You can't have one player banned for having the Twitch chat muted and having their name in there, and then or DQ'd, and then have another player who also has their name in chat not get DQ'd. Either don't DQ either of them or DQ both of them.
Yeah.
You can't have it's like you want to have your cake and eat it too and say that you're doing investigations, and like it doesn't make sense when the situations are literally the same except for the player response. And so you can't,
so that is the difference. That is the difference, though, which I can understand that from their perspective. Is like with player 4, my game situation, undeniable proof, he openly admitted it. Close case. Very simple.
So,
if you're saying like that's the question was answered. In Baneslayer's example, he said very clearly, I am not in the stream. They asked him to check his tabs. He said, I am not in the stream. Which then raises the question of what is the actual potential lag on these things? Which some people apparently immediately told them, oh, the lag could be even an hour. And then some people have come out since and said, no, the lag is at maximum 5 or 10 minutes. And we're 30 minutes into this game. And so that's where there's the question mark of it, of is he being honest or not? And I'm not giving any opinions on that. I do not know him as a person.
It's almost like this whole thing is completely unenforceable in a consistent way. You just can't do it.
Right.
Or if anyone's thinking about watching the stream, don't use your name.
My real question,
but also,
and if you get caught watching the stream, never admit you were watching the stream. I mean,
yeah. What if Malcolm Timna guy had said, "I'm not watching the stream"? What happens then?
I guess he stays in our game.
That's what I'm saying, and that feels like you're begging for people to be dishonest about these things, and that doesn't make sense to me. Why you would want to kind of encourage dishonesty in the community, because you get punished for being honest. You get punished for being straight up about what happened that was an accident versus denial. Even if, like, that's what I'm saying. Like, it doesn't matter to me. It's immaterial whether the second player is guilty or not. It doesn't really matter. It's about the difference between the two situations and the consistency between them. And we don't know what would have happened if the first player had said the same thing as the second player. And we'll never know that.
Right.
We'll never know now.
And, I'll reiterate, like, dear God, guys, chaos. Like, I know you're doing your best, but, like, we gotta get this stuff straight. We gotta get some consistency. We gotta figure out how to move forward so that these controversies are not happening every single weekend, because it makes the CDH community look bad. It makes it look like we're this toxic environment where people are lying and cheating and watching Twitch streams and doing all these things. And the fact of the matter is, the reality, if you take away Twitter and you take away some of the Discord conversations that happen, you take away all this stuff, and you get down to the people sitting down at the table and playing Magic, playing CDH, we are some of the coolest, most wholesome, most honorable people you will run into playing this game.
We're complete fucking nerds.
We are we are geeks and nerds, 100%. Dude, like Malcolm, we sat up there in New York, right? eating
We did.
burritos all night
Straight up.
and playing Magic.
Magic. We were in a shop. We're in a shop in the middle of Long Island. We're just playing Magic. We ordered 2-for-1 burritos from this great spot. None of you will know where this is, so I don't even. It doesn't even make sense to say the name of the spot, but it's called Limon. Ordering 2-for-1 burritos and burrito bowls, and just chowing down and talking about Magic, and like talking over our plays, like instead of like trying to just kill each other at the table because we're not playing for stakes or anything. We're just talking about like what we're doing and trying to make each other a little better every day. You know?
Yeah, and that's the experience. That's my experience of CDH. Is that's what I experience. Even in tournaments, there's that. It feels like that. The toxicity that everyone talks about all the time. That's not who we are. That's not the reality of the community at all. And I find it personally very frustrating to see us, portrayed in a way that I don't think is accurate. Yes, we have all these issues. Yes, we have these problems. But my God, man, everyone is working their ass off to try to make it work. They really genuinely are.
To be so clear, like, I don't think there's anyone who like truly overall prefers webcam events to in-person. I think everyone prefers in-person Magic a little bit. Some people like the comfort of being from their home, whatever. But the fact is, I care about these online events and their existence so much. They're what got me into CDH. I was living in Costa Rica when I started. I would have never played a CDH tournament if I didn't have access to these kind of events. I would have never gotten to originally play with people like Memo and Tuca and all these incredible European players if it wasn't for these online events. This wouldn't exist for us. We wouldn't have connected. We wouldn't have built these relationships. They're very important, and I want them to keep going strong. I want them to get better. And again, I fully believe that all of us, everyone here, everyone who's been talking shit on Twitter, everyone who's been talking shit on Discord, everyone from the Chaos, Treasure Series, I don't know what to call it, organization, we all share the common goal. We all share a very common goal of growth and development in the community in a positive direction. We're all on the same overall mindset there. We're just not always on the same page of how to get there. And I would really love if we could all get on the same page of how to get there, while at the same time being empathetic and understanding of each other. You have to recognize that not everyone can be perfect. Not every situation can be handled perfectly. It's important to recognize that it can't be handled perfectly, but it's also important to have expectations for things to be handled efficiently and reasonably. And it's important when things aren't handled as good as they could have been handled to be, accountable for that. And that comes from both sides. Player-based, tournament organization. People should apologize for how they handled some of the stuff in talking to Chaos this week. And I would love Chaos apologize for, how kind of lackluster they did in this whole investigation.
Ownership.
I would love for just
all
everyone,
take ownership.
Yeah,
all of us take ownership.
Everyone to just take ownership and work to get better. The same way that Malcolm and Max are sitting there eating burritos, talking about their plays. Let's talk about how we could handle these situations better in the future. Be reasonable human beings. Be understanding. Be constructive. That's what matters.
Yeah, agreed.
I actually got my first unsportsmanlike at my first win. They gave me a turn skip at the beginning of round 3.
Oh yeah,
that hurt. Yeah, I said a dirty word as I was walking out of the tournament space, and the judges heard me, and because they couldn't reach me for comment.
What'd you say?
I said the F word. I said fuck real loud because I was talking about like a play that happened during my last round. Like I wasn't even in a game at the time. I was literally just me and Jordan were leaving the conference room where the tournament was being held, and as I was walking out the door, Jordan reminded me of something, and I was like, fuck. Like real loud.
They gave you an unsportsmanlike for that?
They gave me an unsportsmanlike, and they gave me a straight up turn
skip.
That's
dumb as
shit. No warning. That's
so fucking dumb,
As
dude.
I came back down for round 3, I came back down from my room. Baldy pulls me aside, like one of the judges from the tournament. Baldy pulls me aside and he says, "Hey, I gotta talk to you." And Jordan just goes on into the room, and he's like, "I'm gonna have to give you a turn skip for this round, due to unsportsmanlike." Yeah, so
I would have fought the shit out of that.
You know the type of player I am. I'll eat a penalty if I have to eat a penalty. It sucked, and ironically, it really turned out that it turned the tide of that game because I went last in that pod, and the last card that I would have drawn, because I skipped my first draw of the game because I didn't get a turn, the last card I would have drawn would have won me the game.
Yeah, but so like what I don't understand there is how'd you get an unsportsmanlike for just randomly saying fuck as you're walking out the room?
Because
you weren't talking to anybody.
Exactly, because it turns out, and I want you guys to both be wary of this. You don't curse so much, Max, but you, Max, You wounded
me, Max.
you curse
Yeah,
a little. You curse a little more. Apparently, that kind of language is now a tournament offense that is publicly being enforced. And so it is a tournament. It is what's called a tournament violation and not a game violation. So it doesn't matter whether you're in the middle of a game or not, or as long as you're on tournament grounds, if a judge hears you using that language, you can get a turn skip immediately unless you show remorse immediately. So if you're walking away, and you're not really paying attention to what you're saying, and you go to get food and you're like talking to your friend and you're like, oh shit, and you just walk away, and you can come back and have a turn skip for your next round. It's super fun.
I'm so
Max,
fucked.
Max,
I'm
stop.
so fucked.
Super fun.
I'm so fucked.
Max,
dude.
you are
I'm
not
so
fucked. You are not fucked. You are screwed. No, you are screwed. You are not fucked. You understand me?
I'm absolutely
Try
man.
it. You are screwed.
I'm so screwed.
I was like, man, if they heard you at a tournament talking like this, it's over.
Here's what we're gonna do.
That's how I talk.
That's
how I talk. Dude.
I will be bringing a
Warning
swear
time,
jar
be
with me to
very
Punt City
careful.
3. I'm bringing
Be very
I'm going to bring a
careful
swear
with this
jar to Punt City 3. It's going to pay for all my lunches. I'm going to eat for free the whole weekend, dude. It's going to be great. It'll be great.
Yeah. Oh, even
Max,
if everybody's only
Max,
putting
I'll
the
make it
quarter.
easy on you, dude. It's just going to be a quarter for each fuck. 1 quarter.
It's over.
Okay? So
You might as well just start putting dollars in the jar now.
That's a lot of money, bro.
But yeah, no.
I got the quarters ready for you. But I just hope that we can get it together as a community. I know all of us really want better things, bigger and better things going on for everyone involved here. But still, I think we all want to move forward, and I think we all want to do better.
Well, hey, Malcolm, dude, always a pleasure talking with you, man. Always a pleasure hanging out with you, and
Anytime.
a blast having you on the show. We will definitely do this again. If you guys enjoyed this video, if you guys enjoyed it, and I hope you did.
Let me do the thing.
I'm getting there. I'm getting to it. Be patient.
This is my job.
Be patient.
This is my whole
Be
job
patient.
is the outro.
Calm down. Calm down. Calm down. But if you enjoyed this, if you enjoyed us talking through some of the more difficult issues around CEDH, please please comment, please join our Discord and tell us what you think. What you say matters to us. It makes a difference in what we do on our show. So what you say will change what we do as topics and what we talk about. So with that, I won't spoil the Max show too much. You know, he's got lots of stuff to talk about, and I don't want to hold him back. So Max, you wanna take us out?
Do you guys want incredible fucking playmats? Like the coolest playmats you've ever seen? Like a Florian versus Obnixilis battle scene based on Game of Thrones? Or maybe an incredible Kitten mat? You can order both of those in the description below! We're taking pre-orders, and we're going to order them in about a week, and then we'll send them out. So it'll be a few weeks, but we're going to do it. Pre-order those playmats. They're fucking sick. If you want to support the channel, don't forget to like and subscribe. If you want to support the channel even more, you can also sign up for our Patreon and get some fun perks on our Discord that you can also join in the link below. My name is Max Sternberg, also known as Wounded Satellite. I was joined by the most incredible co-host that has ever existed on planet Earth, Max Pfefferman. And we were joined by the greatest Sisay pilot to ever exist. The #1, the dominant Sisay destroyer, the Weatherlight captain himself, Malcolm motherfucking Beckford. Thank you so much for coming on the show. If you're interested in CEDH coaching for anything that's not Sisay, go ahead and hit me up. You can find me as Wounded Satellite on the places. And if you do want to get coached on Sisay, you should definitely hit up this guy because he knows way more about that
on
deck.
Twitter. You can find me at Vice Versa on Discord or at the Sisay Discord link below.
Thank you guys so much for watching the show, and we will see you next time.